Hey everybody, good evening. It is our time for our online nutrition seminar. You guys are going to have to bear with me. I am in bed. So I don't know if you guys noted my post on our Figured Out site, but a little bit out of commission right now. Just physically, mentally, I'm mostly okay, dealing with some heart rate issues out of all things, right? So the good news is, like, when you work out and you're fit, your resting heart rate goes down, and it's very common. Your normal resting heart rate is somewhere between 60 and 100 beats per minute, and in athletes, can get even lower, right around like 50, and sometimes even a little lower than that. But it becomes a problem when it gets so low that your heart isn't pumping enough blood and oxygen for you to feel okay, which results in like dizziness and tiredness and sometimes fainting and exhaustion. And that's about where I am right now. So right now my heart rate is somewhere between 36 and 42 beats per minute, which is kind of on the low side. And typically that's caused by, like heart disease or some sort of malfunction with the heart, or thyroid, or some sort of fever or medication. And they've checked all those things. My blood work has been done. They checked my heart. I wore a Holter monitor. You guys ever had to do that? It's basically you're hooked up like Frankenstein's monster for a day or more. So they did all that stuff, and everything came back that I am completely healthy, except I have bradycardia. That's what it's called, basically low resting heart rate. So anyway, I'm waiting a few seconds to see who joins us, so that we can start our online nutrition seminar, because it's very much about you and about your nutrition. The reason I wanted to have this is because this is probably the most, hey Christy, it's probably one of the most common questions that I get or topics that I get, something either about not sure what to eat, I'm not sure how to plan what I eat, I'm not sure, etc. So that would be helpful for us to, I'll go through some things just with me. Sorry. So the other thing is I'm not like sharp as a tack right now, so I'm just letting you guys know that I'm doing my best. So I do have an outline, so I do know what I want to say to y'all, but I do want to go through some basic points about planning and then use the last part almost like as a workshop. So for example, Christy, you're on, you know what your macros are. If you're like, man, I'm really having a hard time just planning a meal, and if I haven't answered those questions in kind of the 10-minute lecture part of the seminar, then we'll use this time to actively work with each other. Hey, Kathy, glad you could join us. So I'm babbling a little bit. I usually try to wait a couple minutes for people to come online. And, feel free, type in some questions if you have any already, or what, how about this? For those who are on, can you type in what you want to most get out of this nutrition seminar? And that way I can make sure I either cover it or make sure that those questions are answered when at the end of our time. I will say the outline that I've got right now will cover, why do we care about nutrition when we're doing all of this work? What kind of resources are currently available to you, whether it's in the Apotheo training app or outside of that app? What are some approaches to meal planning? Because it's not just like plan your meals and go for it. We have people who approach it a variety of different ways. And then a couple different ways to put together a meal plan. So that's where I've got, those are the main topics, and then we'll spend some time in kind of a workshop format working with your individual macros and working with each other. So if there are certain things that you'd like to know, make sure you let me know. I'm going to get started in a few minutes, not in a few minutes, in a few seconds, because we're a couple minutes in. I've given people time. They can be on time. All right, sorry for the nutrition seminar. Plus, it's recorded, so if you are watching this as a recording, feel free to either put questions on the recording or message me later. I will, I think, download this into YouTube, but make it as part of a playlist or actually a closed YouTube or private YouTube video so that your specific questions, not the whole world, it doesn't have access to it. It'll just be for this group. Okay, so why do we even care about nutrition? Most people, when they start thinking about weight loss or muscle gain, they think about the gym. They think about working out, and that's wonderful. But the very number one thing everybody needs to start off with is diet. You cannot out-train a bad diet. The diet will absolutely help you gain the most efficient in the gym, gain muscle the way that you want to, lose weight the way that you want to. Diet is critical. Oh, sorry, dog wants to leave the room. Okay, I guess she doesn't want to hear about nutrition. So I always say like nutrition is like 80-90% of the equation. If you're not nailing your nutrition, good luck. I don't know. You might get some mixed results. Speaking of 80%, I am also a firm believer in the 80-20 rule. You may have noticed this in some of your plans. I'll give you some guidelines and I'll say hit it 80% of the time. And it's also true when it comes to nutrition guidelines. Now, if you're a competitor, here is the caveat: hit your nutrition 100% of the time, because you are doing something very specialized, very specific, and every detail does count. So I want you to be consistent with your nutrition, and it may not be perfect. You may mess up, that's fine. But again, your goal is not 80%, your goal is 100%. So resources that are available to you already. So within the Apotheo software, and that is the training software where I'm uploading your plans and all that other jazz, there are macro or flexible, excuse me. Sorry, you guys, if you caught the first few minutes, I am really struggling with this heart rate thing. I'm tired. Anyway, there are macro guidelines. There's a book if you go to settings, content, and then resources, there's a list of resources available, and there's a PDF of macro guidelines or flexible dieting 101, something like that, that explains how you use macros, how you can use that in your plan. So if you have a plan that is macro based, you definitely want to check that resource out. Then the second thing that's uploaded in that same area is a recipe book. So as we continue to collect more recipes, and feel free to post things that you like or that you've liked in your meal planning, there's a whole recipe book. So if you run out of ideas, you can borrow some of the ones that other people have come up with. Outside of the Apotheo app, MyFitnessPal, MyMacros Plus are two what I call logging or tracking apps, where you can enter your food in, you can see how many grams of protein, carbohydrates, and fats they have. And I do have my cell phone. You can kind of see it here. So I'm going to try to pull up MyFitnessPal. That's what I use, and that's what most people use. MyMacros Plus is another option, but I'm going to go to a date. So the thing is, in MyFitnessPal, the key is to use the nutrition tab, that little pie chart tab. And if you click on that, you'll see, can you guys see this? Hold on. Proteins, carbohydrates, fiber of all the foods that you have that day. What I don't want you to worry about is the goals or the macros. I am determining that for you. If you're on a macro-based plan, or if I've said, I want you to eat 4 ounces of this or half cup of this, that's what I want you to log and track. Don't worry about, you should never need to upgrade MyFitnessPal. You should never need to pay for that version. You don't care about the percentages that they are telling you. Do not care about the calories or the calories earned from exercise. I have put all of that into the equation when I give you guys macros, when I give you meal plans. So MyFitnessPal or MyMacros Plus is a glorified electronic diary only. Okay. The other thing that's really great is something called Calorie King. So let's say you just want to know about how much something is, or how many calories, or what the protein or carbohydrates or fats are. You can look it up on an app called CalorieKing.com. Pretty much anything you can think of food-wise is in there with the number of serving. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. So those are your main resources. Now, approaches to meal planning. This is really fun because I realized I always assume people meal plan the exact same way until, of course, I started meeting a lot of you. You guys all have different approaches to meal planning. So I'm going to start with the approach that I call Plan, Eat, Record. This is the one that I personally recommend because it guarantees that you meet your meal plan requirements every time. That when I say plan, it means plan in advance. And whether you want to plan for 1 day, 3 days, a week, I don't care. But for example, I plan my meals for the week, and I use the same. So for 1 week, I'll eat the same thing for the whole week. Now, some people want to, for the whole week, they have like 3 or 4 different menus, whatever you want to do. But the key is you plan first. That means that you already know what you're going to eat in advance. You prep it in advance, and then you eat it when it's time to eat it. So that the benefit to that is that there are no surprises. So if you're doing a macro-based plan, you don't have to scramble and figure out your macros at the end. If you're doing a meal plan, you've already got your food kind of all planned out. You've gone to the grocery store, you have everything on hand. So that's the pros to that. The con to that is if you're someone who gets super bored with the same types of food, or you don't like to, you like to switch it up, you like having variety, all this other stuff, then that might be a con to having that plan, eat, and record method. So think about what is comfortable. If you are really super busy and you don't have time each day to think about food, I highly recommend the plan, eat, record. If you're someone who has time or really, really needs that flexibility daily, then that's probably not your plan. In fact, this is probably your plan. I'll say cook, eat, record. So when I say cook, it doesn't mean that there's no plan. It means that you have food available that you can mix and match with. And Susie, if you've met Susie Howell, she's a member of this group. This is kind of her method where she prepares. She has some protein, she's got some carbs, she's got some other foods. There's kind of there. And then each day she kind of puts together how she wants. And so then she records it. So she's hitting her macros, she's hitting her meal plan, but she has some flexibility in there, and that way she doesn't feel restricted. And the psychology around this is really important. If you can't deal with something that's strict or you feel like something is off limits, you're going to want to eat it. So if the other version is a little bit too restrictive, you need that flexibility, then cook, eat, and record is what I recommend. Now notice in both of these, there's still some sort of advanced planning, because the third method I find the least successful, and that's just eat and record. So that means you start your day off with whatever you're supposed to eat, and you kind of eat it, and then you write it down, and you're like, oh crap, I wasn't supposed to eat that, or oh, I ate too much of that. I got to scramble and rearrange my day in terms of food. So I don't particularly like that method. It is by far the most flexible, but I also find it to be the one where people tend to overeat or undereat because they haven't thought about their entire day or week or whatever. So let's talk about how we put together the perfect meal plan, or even a perfect meal. And I was having a great conversation with my mom today because she mommed it up and said she needed to come take care of me and that I needed to have my mother. So she drove up from Southfield. And the thing we were talking about, she's like, I never have enough protein. And this is a common occurrence for most people who start to work with me, because most people eat less protein than what I recommend or what for their goals. So if you are trying to gain muscle, so if you are preparing for a show or contest and we're working towards muscle gain, probably protein requirement is going to be a little bit higher than some of the lifestyle or healthy lifestyle clients who want lean muscle but are not trying to bulk up. But either way, most times I'm going to have at least 0.8 grams to 1 gram of protein per pound of lean muscle mass. So that means like some of you might have 120 grams of protein. And for a lot of people in the American diet, that's far more protein than you're used to eating. So my first approach to meal planning is, number one, start with your protein, because you know you're going to need it. You know you're going to have it in there. You know you're going to have a protein requirement. So start and build your meal around a protein that you like. Examples, obviously your meats: chicken, fish, turkey, beef, bison, venison, duck, even protein powder. That's not a meat, but protein powder, tempeh, soy. Any other type of vegetarian protein is also an option too. So you have a ton of proteins to play with. Then I would say look at your carbohydrate sources. And I really, 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 especially with carbs, highly recommend the least processed sources possible. So rice, oats, whole grains like barley, amaranth, quinoa, those types of things. You can even use rice cakes. What am I missing? Did I say oatmeal? Probably beans, legumes, fruits and vegetables. Those are going to be your best options. I would, not to say that you cannot have some of the more refined carbohydrates, but I'm telling you right now, you're going to feel a lot better and feel a lot more full with those other whole food type carbohydrates. I would put that as part of the 80-20 rule. Try to make 80% of your food from that whole unprocessed, less processed kind of carbohydrate. And then if you want to add in something later, like a treat or something, 20%. Okay. Then if you have some fats to play with, you've got nut butters, nuts, regular butter, and use regular butter. Don't use margarine with all that other stuff in it. Use butter. If you're going to put fat, get fat. You know, oils like olive oil, coconut oil, avocado is a great source of fat. There's just lots of different fats out there that are available too. So if you start with a protein and build your meal around that, then add on carbohydrates and fats, then you guarantee you're hitting your protein requirement, which is typically the hardest thing for people to meet. And then you can start to get creative with other meals. Then the fourth category of stuff that I talk about are what I call add-ons. Those are your spices. Those are your things that kind of jazz it up. I love things like Laughing Cow Swiss cheese wedge. You can do so much with that. Salsa, diced tomatoes, what's something else? Bolthouse Farm yogurt dressings, your homemade dressings, things that you make on your own. But they're the little things that will kind of jazz up the meal. So I wanted to give you a couple examples of something that I've eaten. Hey, Andrea. Hey, Mom. Hey, I can see you guys are here. So I want to give you a couple examples of things that I've made recently, in fact, that I ate this week that that follow that rule. So I have a Costco membership, and they've got these Mediterranean chicken skewers. They are pre-cooked, but they're not really made with much other than spices and a little olive oil. The macros are great. So I take this chicken off the skewers and kind of hand shred the chicken or whatever. Add in a handful of, first then I have like a 3/4 cup or a half cup of this great quinoa wild rice mix, sprouted rice and quinoa. Then I add in a handful of spinach. So those are my carbohydrates. And then I have some fat already with the chicken and everything like that. And then I use some Bolthouse Farms dressing. Andrea, you're late. You're going to have to listen again to the recording for which rule, probably the 80-20 rule, or the start with your protein first is what I'm referring to. So then I tossed it up like diced tomato. Yeah, then I tossed it up in a cold salad and ate it. It was delicious. And so I've been eating that this week. I love any kind of what I call hash, which means ground turkey or ground beef, some potatoes, any kind of potato chopped up finely, and then lots of different types of vegetables. I like cauliflower rice because it doesn't really taste like anything. I can hide it in pretty much everything. Add a little extra rice. It gets all bulky. Add some salsa to that, all some other things, and then mix it up, and then it's a hash. The other approach so that's kind of start with a protein first and kind of build, and they're mix and match things, and you can look in the recipe guide, or I love your ideas for things that you've been making that are delicious that you can put as part of a meal. The other way that I like to do is to approach it with what I call meal makeovers or meal make-unders. So a lot of time when we are, quote, dieting, it doesn't matter what kind of brand, it's just cauliflower rice. Just don't get anything that's overly processed. So Andrea asked the question, what brand of cauliflower rice? I get Green Giant because that's what's at my store, but there are lots of other brands that are perfectly fine because cauliflower rice is just little bits of cauliflower. You can even make it at home. So however you decide to do it. Okay, so meal makeovers, meal make-unders. So this is another way that you can approach meal planning. If you're having a craving for something, but you feel that it doesn't quite meet your requirements or what either for macros or for meal planning, then you can figure out a way to make it over to meet it. So if you're craving a burger and fries and you know that you don't want any of the highly processed, hydrogenated oils, blah, blah, blah for fries, an alternative would be, or you don't want to use the processed bun, make your own burger with meat. Use some Ezekiel bread or sprouted grain bread, or Ezekiel has a sprouted grain English muffin, which is really great for a bun. You can use a Laughing Cow Swiss cheese wedge as your add-on for the cheese, and then you can finally slice up some sweet potatoes and either bake them or microwave them and add a little bit of salt and pepper, burger and fries, or a regular potato, burger and fries. You guys have heard me of my pizza, whole wheat tortilla, Laughing Cow cheese wedge, tomatoes, a little bit of cheese, no cheese usually, depending on which meal plan you're on. Cheese you can either add or not. And then some toppings like vegetables or meats, put that on there, and then cut it up and bake it or microwave it. There's your pizza. So there's lots of ways to take kind of the thing that you're craving and then make it over, make it under, if you think about the flavors or what you're trying to get to and what's close enough, what's a good substitution. And so that is a great way to approach meal planning. So I've talked a lot. I'm going to pause. So if you guys have questions, I can answer your questions. And then if you don't have any more questions, what I'd like to do is spend some time. Yes, Andrea, there's a cookbook. If you go into the resources part of the Apotheo program, so if you go under settings, content, and resources, there is a recipe book already available to all figured out clients, as well as, well, you're not doing macros, so you don't need to worry about that, but there is a macro guide as well. But there is a whole recipe book that we'll continue to add recipes to as we get them. What other questions do you have, team? Okay. Does anyone have any kind of real life scenarios or questions or things that problem solving that we can tackle as a team together? You want to do macros? Okay. Are you ready for macros? That's going to require some counting and all that good stuff. So the first thing you'll want to do, Andrea, is to check out the macro guide that's also under content, resources, and settings. This is probably a little bit not the venue to go over. When you say go over the rules, can you talk more about the things that I was talking about in the beginning of the seminar of this? Just give me a thumbs up if that's what you mean, Andrea. When you say go over the rules. In the meantime, if there are any other questions, I see a couple more people joining us. Go over the, yes, okay. So in the beginning of the Facebook piece, I talked about a couple things. First, I said nutrition is really, I said 80 to 90% of your success, really 100% of your success. You can't out-train a bad diet. Then I always talk about an 80-20 rule unless you're a competitor. 80-20 rule means I really want you to look at 80%, hitting 80% of these whole unprocessed foods, then 20% you can use some other stuff. And the other part of the 80-20, and this is the exception for competitors, I don't expect perfection, you guys, but you will need at least 80% of the time to be really hitting your meal plan. 20% of the time, if you need a treat or a break or something like that, most of your plans allow for that. And unless you're a competitor, then you need to really look at being right on your plan 100% of the time, knowing that you may or may not hit it 100% of the time, but that should be the goal. Then the other thing that I talked about, Andrea, was the approach to meal planning. You could do a plan, eat, and record, meaning you're planning your meals first, then eating and recording it. Or you can do a cook, eat, and record, where you cook a variety of different things and then eat it and then record what you've got. And one provides a little bit more flexibility than the other. One provides a little bit more certainty than the other. And then my other piece was start with, and when you're doing a meal plan, start with your protein source first and then plan your meal around your protein source. So those were some of the, quote, rules or guidelines I was providing that I found to be helpful and that other people found to be helpful in their nutrition planning, in the meal planning. Hey, Samara, glad you finished your workout, Mama. So what I wanted to do with this next part was if first of all, answer any more questions that are outstanding, but if someone has macros or someone has a meal guideline that they've been struggling with, I really would like to use this time for us to kind of crowdsource and help each other out. I want to continue to use the Figure It Out Facebook group for that purpose as well. So if you're ever struggling with, gosh, I really don't know what to eat, or I'm really having a hard time hitting my fill in the blank, then post it. We've got a lot of really smart people here and a lot of creative people. A lot of times meal planning is just, we're trying to be creative cooks. We're trying to put meals together that are simple, easy, convenient, and taste good. No one wants to feel like they're dieting. Nobody wants to not like their food. So should I not use salt? Christy, you're a competitor. You need to use salt. So especially if you are, so you need electrolytes in your diet, and salt, potassium, magnesium, calcium are important. And so when you are, okay. Okay. All right. So Christy's throwing out some questions. Good. So when you are working, building muscle, when you're exercising, and you are eating a lot of unprocessed foods, that means you're not getting the sodium in those foods. Now, most people, most Americans, and a big American diet, regular American diet with more processed foods, they eat plenty of sodium. But if you're eating this way, you need to add salt to your food. And that's not a bad thing. Even me with high blood pressure, I do add salt to my food. So that's important. Great question. Breaking down each meal. Tried with MyFitnessPal, but fell short on my macro count. So one of the things, Christy, you can do is start with something really basic, like, again, start with your proteins first for each meal. If you eat 4 or 5 meals per day, I remember about 5 meals for you, maybe 6. Put those meals in. I don't even care what the numbers say. Put the types of things you want to eat in, and then just play around with the amounts. So protein is one where, I know 4 ounces of a protein is typically about 20 grams of protein. So if I have 5 meals in a day and I have to get 120 grams, then I might need 5 ounces or so, or maybe 4.5 or something like that. So you put those meals in first and don't even worry about the numbers. I always start with, what do I want to eat this week? And I break it down, and then I just play and start tweaking things. So maybe instead of a half cup of rice, I'm eating a third of a cup of rice. Or if I added oil and this, and I'm over on fat, well, I can take back the oil or something like that. So you just start with, in fact, don't think about the numbers. Start with your proteins and think about, what kind of meals do I want to have? Put them in MyFitnessPal and then tweak them. Then if you're really having a hard time hitting your numbers, take a screenshot, post it in the group, and we will help you tweak them. Tamara, you're saying all sorts of results this week. Do you want to chat about, can you type what some of the results are? Tamara's gone from you were more of I'll call it an eat and record, or cook, eat and record, to a plan, eat and record. And it sounds like that's really helping you hit your macro targets a lot better. And you said all sorts of results this week. Hopefully good results, right? I'll wait for you to respond. Some of you I know are en route and driving. So yeah, Christy, hopefully that answered your question. If not, definitely ask it again or ask it differently, and I'd be happy to tackle that one for you again. So the other thing is we are putting together more sample meal plans. Some of you have some sample day plans, which have you found helpful, but sometimes you just need kind of a template to work off of. So JC, who is my assistant, she's also competing this fall, she's been working on putting together sample meal plans with different macro breakdowns or different types of breakdowns. And when that resource is available, it will be available in the settings and the resources settings, content, resources area, same place as the macro guide and all of those types of things. So we want to continue to provide as many examples as possible, and that might help you, Christy, in breaking down each meal. Okay. Oh, all sorts of. So Andrea is eating and recording baby steps. I think that's one of the biggest things that is important when you first start. A lot of times we think we're doing well, then you write it down and you're like, oh, or there's a lot of hidden foods or hidden calories and things. So if you're someone who goes to get salads, like, okay, I have to go to Wendy's or I have to go to Champs or something, and you get a salad, it's just not the same as if you were preparing it at home. So there are a lot of hidden things in there. So writing things down, whether you're doing macros or a meal plan, I always encourage you to record it in MyFitnessPal and do that. And then you really start to see what you're eating. Nice job, Samara. Down and weight, see? So Samara's, again, getting her macros all together, and I know that that's going to make a huge, huge difference. And Christy, good, that helped. Waist has been smaller, jeans are baggy. Yeah, that's good stuff. That always feels good. And sometimes you're going to see that, you're going to feel the differences, either in energy or in clothing or in photos, before you see it on the scale. Because you might be doing some body composition type things. You might even be retaining water if you're lifting. So you may not necessarily see the scale go down as much as you think that it should be going down. But if you are doing all the right things, your body is going to start to change and you're going to see it in a lot of different places. So good work. I love this stuff. I love hearing your stories and your questions. I'd like to know what's your favorite meals that you've been making. Let's share. I mean, I want to hear. So I shared my chicken, I call it my Mediterranean chicken surprise, which is the chicken, spinach, quinoa, and sprouted rice, tomatoes, and my dressing. It was really, 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 really good. It takes like 5 seconds to make too, even better. I always talk about my pizza. I always talk about my fake cheesecake, which is basically a scoop of protein powder, about a cup or, hey, Paul, chicken and rice, right? A scoop of protein powder, some vanilla Greek yogurt, and whatever fruit you like. So it's super high in protein. It's a great post-workout meal because you've got protein, carbs with the fruit and in the Greek yogurt, but you're also getting, let's see, that's about 14 grams. You're using like a real Greek yogurt, it's about 14 grams of protein. Then you add the scoop of protein and that gives you another 20, 25 grams. Andrea likes salmon and brown rice. Good. So yeah, keeping it nice and simple is good. The salmon's got great protein, but it also has good healthy fat. And then the brown rice is good carbohydrate. So Monterey chicken, how do you make that, Samara? What's the Monterey part? And remember, you guys all have kind of different diets. So remember, some of you will be like, man, how does she get to eat that? Well, you have different diets too. So remember that as we're going through this meal planning piece. Monterey chicken, that's a good one. It sounds good. So here's another one that I really like. Ooh, ground turkey, romaine, lettuce, and tortilla chips. I know that recipe. It's kind of like a taco salad, right? Or do you make it differently, Christy? Yeah, so like taco salads are good. Salads. Okay, my friend Tabitha, and if you guys have met Tabitha, she's my friend who sometimes does bikini posing with us. She's not in this group, but she's a great competitor friend of mine, just wonderful person. So Tabitha has turned me on to what I call the ultimate salad. You start with any kind of meat. I know it sounds kind of stupid, but any kind of meat, romaine, lettuce, spinach, any kind of combinations of lettuce. She does fat-free cheese. I don't like fat-free cheese, but I guess on a salad it's okay. But don't ever try to melt fat-free cheese. It's just not, I don't know. I do reduced fat or I'll just do full fat depending on the diet, depending on what stage I'm in competition. Then seasoning. So she turned me on to this great sriracha pepper seasoning, or all sorts of different seasonings you can use in the salad. And then the yogurt dressing. Yep, tacos without the tacos. Of course, it's Paul. I think he means tacos without the shell. I'm going to hope. Anyway, so he's also sitting next to me making jokes, and I'm going to hit him with my book. So anyway, they can hear you snorting. Anyway, but the big salad is really great because you can mix so many different things in there. You can use different types of dressings, different types of seasoning, different types of meats, different types of add-ins, and play with it, right? It's really fun. Taco salad without the boathouse dressing, yep. Baked chicken, chipotle. Oh, this is your Monterey chicken. Baked chicken, chipotle, rotel, tomatoes. Oh, those are so good. You should try the rotel with jalapenos in it. That's really good. Sugar-free barbecue sauce and bacon if you have enough fat in your macros. Let me tell you, bacon is a game changer. Bacon bits, bacon pieces, you can add just a tablespoon of it, not a lot in your macros. It adds a big boost of flavor to a lot of your food. So if you like bacon, but you can't have the full strip bacon or you don't have enough macros for it, go for it. If you do have the macros for it, regular bacon, turkey bacon, it's a really great, what did I make with bacon that was just freaking delicious? Ooh, it was something with avocado. So this was when I had a lot higher fat. It was avocado, bacon, and turkey. So that's a really good combination as well. So that's good stuff. Don't be afraid of foods that you don't typically think of as diet foods because especially if you're using macros, you can make it fit. Andrea, I eat bacon. Big Mac salad. Okay, we're going to go over to her house, to Samara's house, and do meal prep with her. That sounds pretty good. So yeah, if you guys want to post these recipes, there is a document in Figured Out Fitness in the Facebook page where you can post just kind of like list the ingredients because people can play around with the amounts themselves. Um, so yeah, we're getting some really good ideas for meals. Now, here's a question that I have for you: breakfast meals. Breakfast tends to me to be a little bit more difficult because I'm on the go. Many of you guys are very mobile, very busy, so cooking a breakfast is usually not an option. You guys can look at me like I'm crazy, but one of my favorite meals for breakfast, it's on the go. I just get a shaker cup and I have a scoop of protein and then a half cup to a cup or whatever, depending on my macros of oatmeal. And I use either water or cashew milk and mix it up and drink it. I like it because I don't like cooked oatmeal. It's kind of not, I don't like it. But the funny thing is, if you guys want to hear a funny story about Paul, he purchased some things called overnight oats. Now, if you've been prepping for a while, you probably know the concept of overnight oats. You prepare your oatmeal with, fruit and whatever you want to put in there, cinnamon, and let it sit overnight. And then you take it and drink it or eat it the next day cold. Well, basically, that's what I do with my quick oats and protein, except it's not cold, it's just wet. Drink it, I really like it. Sweet potato, black beans, cinnamon, and vegetable broth. Oh, that sounds good, Mom. Yep, and then eggs. Eggs is a great portable thing. Great job, Andrea. So I had eggs last week, hard-boiled eggs with a little salt and pepper. You can even put some hot sauce on it, some salsa. The other thing you can do with eggs, if you have enough macros, is you can cut them up and put like either a little bit of cream cheese or mayonnaise in it and have a little egg salad. Fruit oatmeal with peanut butter and honey. Rice cakes with almond butter or peanut butter with a little honey drizzle. So good. Super fast, easy to make. If you don't have a lot of fat macros, you can use PB Fit or PB2, the powdered peanut butter, and use either water or almond or cashew milk and make it up, mix it to the consistency you like, and spread it on toast, on a tortilla, on a rice cake, or any of those things, and it makes a really easy, simple, portable treat. And the PB2 or PB Fit has a decent amount of protein, moderate carbs, low in fat, and if you put it, on a tortilla or whatever, you might have some additional protein and carbohydrates, and they're also low fat. If you're on the low fat train, if you're on the higher fat train, then put that peanut butter on there, put that almond butter on there. It's good stuff. And if you drizzle honey, it just gives you just enough flavor without having a ton of sugar and calories, because honey is actually not bad. I think 1 or 2 tablespoons is like 17 grams of carbs, so it's not too bad. Breakfast. What else? Yogurt, obviously, super portable. And that's why I always like to add a scoop of protein to my yogurt, because yogurt itself has some protein. It's a lot more carbs. Which train are you on, Andrea? You're on the balance train. You're on the balance train. You're meaning you're kind of equally spread out between proteins, fats, and carbs. You want to be on the high fat train. Anyway, but that's why I add a scoop of protein to the yogurt, because that then will pump it up with enough protein to satisfy like a full meal for me. What gram amount is considered low carb? You tend to overeat carbohydrates. It depends. So it depends on what your overall caloric requirement is. I don't know, low carb could be like 20% or fewer of your calories. Snacks. I'll come back to that, Christy. So depending on what your caloric intake is, it's probably going to be 20% or less. I have seen people go under 100 carbs, that is very low carb, or even getting into that keto realm. And there's nothing wrong with keto. It's just you have to really be thoughtful about what you're trying to do and what you're training for and what your body likes. Your body likes to use carbohydrates as fuel, and you really want to make sure, I'm a huge believer in getting a wide variety of foods. And in carbohydrates, you do have certain B vitamins and other things that are in carbohydrate foods, especially whole grains. And if you're getting really, really low in carb, you're going to need to supplement that somehow. You tend to overeating though on carbs is more of a matter of planning, and really think about the types of foods that have a lot more bang for the buck. So not to say you have to go low carb everything, but to really think about how you're planning your meals. That's why I was telling you earlier, Mom, start with your protein first and then add in carbohydrates and think you can adjust the amounts. And as much as you can prepare at home, the better, because you have a lot more control over what kind of food you're eating. Christy, snacks. Oh, yes. Good question. So looking for snack ideas. There's a ton of things that you can do for snacks. The easiest thing are obviously nature's portable fruits and vegetables. The other thing, like I said, rice cakes are great snacks because you can put stuff on them. Things that are small that you can carry with you. Pouch tuna, if you guys ever seen the StarKist tuna, it's about 70 calories, 70 to 80 calories, and 17 grams of protein. If Again, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of processed foods, but beef or turkey jerky, it has a lot of sodium in it. So even someone who I say salt your food, it has a lot of sodium, but it does have a lot of both protein and carbohydrates. A jerky. What else? Little nuts, but you be careful with nuts, especially if you do not have a really high fat content or you're trying to eat balanced. Serving of nuts to about 28 grams or so for almonds. Those are good. Those hold you over. Always go back to the yogurt fruit. I like that kind of stuff. And nut butters, seeds, sunflower seeds, again, a little higher in fat, but really good. But whenever you do a snack, my whole advice to you is if you have a carbohydrate in your snack, pair it with a protein. Otherwise, you're just going to have all that sugar rush your system and it's going to make you nothing but hungry. And so the goal is that if you're going to have a carbohydrate, you got to pair it with some sort of protein. That's why yogurt is a great snack. Cheese is a good snack. What I want you to avoid is pairing a lot of carbs with a high fat, because that's just like a ton of energy. And if you're not about to work out or burn something off, then you just it's going to feel heavy, and I don't know, nuts are your downfall. Yeah, well then, the other option is don't eat them. If you know it's a problem, don't eat it. Let me think, more snacks. What kind of snack ideas do you guys like? For help Christy out here. I've talked about rice cakes and nut butters and peanut butter, fruits and vegetables. Oh, I told Andrea once, this is so good. So let me tell you, this is where you can bacon bits. Bacon bits, sweet potatoes, and green onions baked together. Oh my gosh, that is a game changer. It's delicious. A little salt and pepper on there. That's really good. Cottage cheese and blueberries. So yep, you've got the protein with the cottage cheese and a little bit of the carbohydrates, blueberries. A lot of cottage cheese. People either like cottage cheese with sweet, like with fruit, or savory with seasonings and peppers and stuff like that. But that's a good one. Yeah, cottage cheese and blueberries. Good stuff, guys. I'm waiting for more questions. Okay, so you talked about your favorite meals. I should be writing all of these down. And remember, put them in the recipe sheet. So if you go to the document section of this Facebook page, just put those recipes in there and you'll be surprised. And what I'm going to do is then collect them and add them to the recipe guide that's in our Figured Out Fitness resource guide. So we're just going to continue to add those things on until we could publish a gigantic Figured Out book, because that's the key. I mean, everybody likes to eat and everybody wants to eat good food. And just because you're trying to lose weight, gain muscle, whatever, doesn't mean all of a sudden you're like, oh, here's my food again. Make it fun, make it delicious. When I have a great meal, I'm just like, I'm one of those kids who still dances when they eat. I'm like, this is so good. Desserts. So we should talk about desserts too. Chocolate can be your friend. Go to Party Saturday. Let's publish. Going to a Party Saturday, how do I prepare and not mess up my macros? Plan in advance. Eat before you go. Drink a lot of water so you're not super hungry or tempted. And then the other thing with macros, if you are doing macros or even if you're not doing macros, estimating. That's the best thing that you can do is estimate, right? So, if you guys have ever seen the hand thing, so your fist is basically like 1 cup of grain. The palm of your hand is 4 ounces of protein. So if you're just okay, I know about 4 ounces is 20 grams, And then let's say they've got, chicken skewers. Maybe you have two skewers that would about fit into the palm of your hand. So this, like a deck of cards. Um, you've got potato salad. Is it a straight potato? No. Does it probably have other stuff in it? Yes. But, I'm going to have a half of my fist of potato salad. Fats. A wait, where's my camera? Is like a tablespoon of fat or one serving of fat. So I'm going to have 2 thumbs of fat. So let's say there's cheese or sour cream or something like that. 2 thumbs. Try to stick with whole foods just like you would at home, or as close to the non-processed stuff as possible. Try not to load up on empty calories. And the other thing is sometimes if you go to a party, just go to the party. Again, if you're not a competitor, if you're a competitor, you need to be a little bit more locked down. But if you're not a competitor and we're talking about healthy lifestyle eating, choose small portions and just get little bits of stuff so that even if you want to sample it, but that doesn't mean you have to have the plate piled up to the top of the, it doesn't have to be in this cone shape on your plate. Just have a little bit of stuff. Think about what you're going to eat. Okay, well, I'm still going to have protein. I'm still going to have carbs. I'm still going to have a little bit of fat, and then arrange your plate that way at the party. We'll work on the publishing later. My first priority is you all hitting your goals and having resources available. So once we get that, maybe I'll publish some stuff. But I do appreciate the entrepreneurship in this group. All for my family, you might add. Any other questions, you guys? These are great, 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 great questions. Do you find this helpful at all? Did this help with the whole planning piece and maybe getting some meal ideas? Give me a thumbs up if it did. If there's other stuff you want to know about, please. Again, if you're going to watch this, if you watch the seminar after the fact, post the questions. If you, post the questions, or you can message me privately if there's something that you want to ask but don't want to ask in the group. And then I highly, highly encourage you to add to the document on the Facebook page that's Figured Out Recipes. And again, it doesn't have to be rocket science, but just say, just like Samara said, here's my Monterey chicken. I have this, 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 and this. We can add that then to the bigger recipe guide, but definitely let's start collecting these here so that people can reference them in the Facebook group, and then we can also add them to the more permanent resource in Apotheo and their training software. But I do appreciate all your attention today. I hope that this helps. I definitely want to make meal planning easier, because once you guys nail meal planning, the rest is like easy peasy. You're going to be rocking your preps or rocking your goals or hitting your marks and losing the weight and gaining the muscle. The meal planning, the nutrition is such, yes, count your BCAAs. Is such a huge part. So Christy asked a really great question. BCAA is part of your count? Yes. So, well, here's the rule of thumb. First of all, I do not recommend drinking BCAAs other than pre, intra, or post-workout. Otherwise, you're just drinking additional calories that you probably don't need. So if you're doing pre, intra, and post-workout, you don't need to count them, because I consider that part of the recovery. But other supplements, yes, I do want you to record. So if you're taking fish oils, evening primrose oils, those things have fat in them, and I do want you to record them so that you're not going way over your fat. If you're taking other types of supplements, you just record them, and MyFitnessPal will have them in there, especially BCAAs. Andrea asked, what is that? BCAAs are branched chain amino acids, and amino acids are critical for protein synthesis and recovery. So when you're lifting heavy weights, when you are working out in the gym, you can use those to either protect your muscle. Let's say if you work out fasted, you'll want to drink BCAA, so you're protecting your muscle so your body is not using muscle for fuel. Or if you have done a workout or you're working out, you drink BCAAs for muscle recovery and, again, and what we call protein or muscle building. So there are some amino acids that are pretty important, and BCAAs are basically, it's a powdered format, and you mix it with water and drink it. They're usually flavored, so that's why a lot of people drink it throughout the day. But if you drink it throughout the day and you're not really working out, it's kind of a waste and you're just adding calories. So Christy, you don't have to count it if you're taking it pre, post, or during. Any other time, yes, count it. Any other questions? These are good. Good, 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 good. All right. Well, Paul, do you have any more jokes over there, Chechi?
I was just reading something about the song The Electric Slide.
Oh, okay. He's talking about the electric slide. So I think this is a great time to then stop our thing today. It's been about 50 minutes. I really appreciate your attention, your questions, your comments, your examples. And if you have any more of those, please let me know. Otherwise, you guys have a great Thursday. And thank you for your attention. Good night.